gave her a lesson in the providence of God. And I want you to take your Bibles now, if you've not already found the book of Esther, because we're going to read just a few verses of what happened. This is the book of Esther, chapter 4. I have told you basically the story of the first 4 chapters, and we pick it up in verse 15. If you're having trouble finding the book of Esther, remember it is a neighbor to the book of Job. Esther, Job, Psalms, Proverbs. But in Esther chapter 4, these are the words of Mordecai to Esther. Verse 13. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, "Do not imagine that you in the king's palace can escape any more than all the Jews. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, and you and your father's house will perish. And who knows but whether you have not attained royalty for such a time as this?" I like the King James that says, "Do you not know that perhaps you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, "Go assemble all the Jews who are found in Susa and fast for me, and do not drink for 3 days, day or night, and I and my maidens also will fast in the same way, and thus I will go into the king, which is not according to the law." In other words, she says, I'm going to go anyway, even though he kills people who do this. And then she says, "If I perish, I perish." In Hebrew, avadti, avadti. If I die, I die. So Mordecai went away and did just as Esther had commanded him. What I'd like to do this morning is to use the words of Mordecai, sometimes Mordecai or Mordecai, depending on where you put the emphasis. What I'd like to do today is to use his words to bridge 2,500 years to speak to us as a church. What he was saying to Esther, in effect, was, number one, Esther, he said, you have to realize that just because you are in the palace, that doesn't mean that you are safe and secure. Because if this decree is fulfilled, you also will suffer the same fate. We are in this together. And I want you to know also, Esther, that if you do not deliver us, if you are not willing to take the risk, maybe God will use some other way, because God's ways are not boxed in and they are not dependent upon one person's faithfulness. But Esther, be faithful where God has planted you. Number one, what he said is, we are in this together. We are in this together. When my wife and I were in Alaska, we took a canoe trip. There were about 40 of us who decided to take this side trip, 2 canoes. That means 20 people in each canoe and 10 people on each side. Don't you like my mathematics? And so we are taking this canoe trip, and we're going to go across to the other side of the lake. I learned a number of different things during this experience. One was that there were some people who put their oar on their lap and did not paddle. You know what the interesting thing is? They arrived on the other side of the lake, though, the same time we did. And when it came to eat the clam chowder and the soup that had been prepared for us and the salmon that had been baked, they ate just as much as we did. Let me ask you something. Is it possible for Moody Church to function as a church and to get by, even though there are some people who keep their oar on their lap? The answer is yes. You know, there may be some people who are even members of Moody Church who do not pray regularly, who long ago have given up on God, maybe because of the bitterness of your heart, because of bad experiences. You no longer intercede. Can we do without your intercession? Yeah, I think we can make it. We can make it to the other side of the lake. There are some of you, bless you, whom God has blessed you financially, and yet you do not give regularly and consistently to the ministry of Moody Church, because you look at the bulletin and you say, well, you know, the needs are being met and they can do without me. Can we do without you? Yes, I suppose we can do without you. But I want you to know something, that on that lake that day, there was a time when everybody did paddle, and that was when we were in a race. During the last couple hundred yards, these 2 boats were in a race to see who would get to the pier first. And I want you to know that the boat that Rebecca and I in won, hands down, no contest. It wasn't even close. And everybody was paddling. Don't miss my point. It is possible for us as a church to get to the other side without your help, with people whose oar is on their lap. But if we want to win the race, if we want to accomplish great things for God and believe for great things for God in the city of Chicago, every single oar has to be in the water. Well, yes, my friend, and that, of course, is a challenge for us not only as we end the year, but as we think about a new year that is just around the corner. The fact that every oar has to be in the water. You know, I've often thought to myself as a pastor, what would happen if every single member, every single Christian were to do what they could do if they were diligently to pursue God, to pursue His people and His work on earth. Think of what we could accomplish. Well, it's time for me to leave you today, but as I do, continue to think about that thought. Is your oar in the water?
Thank you, Dr. Lutzer. Today, Erwin Lutzer began a message from the book of Esther on For Such a Time as This. Tomorrow, hear more of the account of one woman's faithfulness despite great personal risk. This challenge to get involved is timely as the new year looms ahead. Today's message can be yours on CD, cassette, or MP3. For full information, call us toll-free at 1-800-215-5001. That's 1-800-215-5001. When you call, ask about For Such a Time as This. For information on other ministry resources from Moody Church, visit our website. You'll find us at runningtowin.org. Please don't forget that Running to Win is supported by listeners like you. This is Dave McAllister. For more from the life of Queen Esther, join us tomorrow for our next edition of Running to Win.